Hi again. This is Charlotte from the Mass Cultural Council. Thanks for joining us today on this webinar about the online application. So I'll just go through a PowerPoint with you and walk you through the application and some guidelines. Next slide, if I can get to it. So just some housekeeping. So if you have any questions, you can ask them via the Q&A button, which is at the bottom of your screen. And we'll be getting to questions that we haven't answered at the end of the webinar. And we will be recording this, so you can watch it later and you can share it. And your phone is muted, so don't worry about any background noise that you might have, like dogs or children or whatever else might be making noise. No one can hear you. So if you do have a question, just type it through the Q&A button. And this PowerPoint will also be available as a PDF on our website later on if you want to revisit it as well for instructions. So just an overview of what we'll be doing today. Introductions, who's with me in the room. I'm Charlotte Cutter, I'm a program officer, and I'm with two other program officers in the room, Mina Kim and Irene Andrew. And I'll be going over the some new LCC guidelines for this year, and I'll be showing you the application page and a few of the changes that we've made this year. So some new guidelines as of this year. The first one is no substitution. That guideline has been discontinued. So what that was that for municipal employees, any type of project salary was not eligible, but now it is eligible. So an example of what that might be is, let's say there's an art teacher that's doing a project that's not part of her regular job that's outside school. Even if she is a municipal employee, she can still be paid for that. And the next one is capital expenditures. This is another guideline that we have decided to discontinue. And what this means is that municipal organizations in the past, they were not eligible to receive funding for this, and now they are. So capital expenditure is any item or a group of items that are worth more than $500 and last more than 3 years. So some examples that have come up in the past are books for a school that cost more than $500, stained glass window for a library. All of these would be eligible now. And as in the past, anyone else is eligible for applying for capital expenditures. So the bottom line is there's no restrictions there anymore. And just some notes about applying. It's the same as it is last year. So I'll walk you through this in a minute, but you'll go to mass-culture.org to find out a little bit more about your local cultural council and any type of priorities and requirements beyond the state guidelines. And make sure that you check those council priorities before September 1st. You want to make sure that you're eligible and that you're meeting all of their requirements before you apply. So I can actually show you that in a minute. Let's see, I'll go through this next slide. But the online application process is the same as it was last year, essentially. So the application opened on September 1st, and the deadline this year is the 16th because the 15th is Sunday. So you have up until 11:59 p.m. to apply. I definitely encourage you to apply earlier in case you need help and something happens. In November and December, the local cultural councils will be holding meetings to look at your application, and they will let you know by January 15th whether they've accepted your application. So I'll walk you through the application in a second, but here's just an overview of the changes. So for those of you who did apply last year, you might remember an eligibility quiz before each application. And based on feedback we got about that, we've moved that to the point of registration. So you don't need to fill it out before each application. And if you have applied last year, you've already done it, so you don't need to do it again. And if you're a new applicant, when you register, it will just have you answer some questions to make sure that you're eligible and your projects are eligible. A good change this year is that the application will auto-save. So if you're working on something and your computer crashes, hopefully you'll be okay. You won't have lost any, if much, information. Something we've also added this year is that email reminders will be sent to the applications in draft form 2 weeks and 1 week prior to the deadline. And this is because last year we had some people who thought they had submitted and they hadn't. So it's just a reminder that, hey, your application is still not submitted and you need to get that in. So that's just another reason to apply early so that you'll get that reminder in case you miss something. We got some feedback last year that there wasn't enough room for text in the project overview, so that's been expanded so you can write more. And under supplements materials, if you're attaching anything, now you can attach 3 separate PDFs instead of 1. So I'll go into that in more detail when I show you the application. So here is how you would find the application. So you would go to our website at mass-culture.org, and it would give you this screen. And then you would click on Applicants. And then you would search for your local cultural council in that yellow box at the top left. So let's just say they're looking for, West Boylston, West Newbury. When you start typing, it will show up and you'll click on it. And you can also see on this page, there's some links to some resources like some FAQs. We'll put a recording of this training on there as well. And just a link to the guidelines is there. So once you search for the local cultural council that you're applying to, you'll be brought to their profile. And you'll see there's 5 purple tabs. And make sure that you click on council priorities before you apply. And that's just where the council writes, whatever requirements they might have beyond our requirements, or what they're looking for in their applications, even if it's not a requirement. So that way you make sure that you're meeting all of their requirements, but that you have a strong application. So I can't say this enough. Make sure that you read this before you apply, because you'll make sure that you're not wasting your time by not even being eligible, and that you have a strong application. And then you'll go to the Apply Now tab to apply. The screenshot here says an application will be available September 1st, but because it's beyond September 1st, you'll see the link to the application there, which is at mcc.smartsimple.com. So after you click on Apply Now, then it will bring you to the system, which looks like this. So if you're a new applicant, you will click on Register here. And if you registered last year as an applicant, you can log in. And if you forgot your password, you'll see under that login button, you can click Forgot Password. So this is if you're a new applicant who hadn't applied last year. So here's the eligibility quiz that will show up when you register. So you only need to do this once, but it's just making sure that you're eligible, so that you don't waste your time applying if you're not, and that we know that you meet all the requirements. So you'll just fill out this this quiz when you apply, or when you register, I'm sorry. And if you have any questions about what something means, you'll see these question marks. And if you hover your mouse over it, it will give you a definition of what something means. So again, if you're a new applicant, after you've done that, it will just ask you to create an account with some basic contact information. And then you can press Submit at the bottom, and you'll receive an email with some login instructions. So then you can return to that website and log in. And after you first log in, if it's your first year, you'll have to change your password. And again, if you have an account from last year, just use the same password. And you'll see on this slide, we mentioned make sure you disable your browser's pop-up blocker. This is because, especially last year, we noticed people were missing information if they hadn't disabled that, because a lot of the information on the application comes through those pop-ups. So if it tells you, like, you forgot to fill this out, like you can't submit yet, you might not see that if you haven't disabled the pop-up. So make sure that for this site, it's disabled. And if you need any help with that, there's a link there that shows you how to do that. So after you log in, you'll be taken to the home page, and you'll see some funding opportunities listed. And to begin the application, you'll just click that Apply Now button, because the funding opportunity listed is that local cultural council application. So let me try, actually, I'm going to switch to the live site. Just bear with me, it's a new program right now, so still working out how to share the screen. Okay. So, yep. Okay. So I'm at the website, and I'm logging in as an applicant. And I'm going to start an application, so I'll click Apply Now on the left side. And here's what it shows me. So anything with the red asterisk is required. So I'd fill out my applicant name. There might not be a different contact person. An example would be, you know, I'm applying on behalf of like the Museum of History, and the contact person is the development director. But if you're, you know, an artist, then you don't need a separate contact person. So that's pretty straightforward. And then project information is also pretty straightforward. Just something that came up last year. Anytime they ask for a number, like estimated number of people served, it always has to be a number. It can't say like 100 to 200. For some reason the system won't take it, so it has to be just a number. So just estimate the number of people served. It can't be text, just a number field. And if you want to look up the council you're applying to, you can do it 2 different ways. So you can start typing. So I'll just try West again. So if I did West Boylston that way, or I can click on these binoculars right here that say lookup, and I can scroll down, or I can just start typing again. There you go. So that's an overview of that. The project overview, this is where you give most of the narrative information about your project. So as I said before, we expanded the amount of space that you have for text. And the budget overview is the next page. I haven't saved my application yet, so you can see the second line there. It says click save before editing, and I should do that. Otherwise, I won't see this project budget button that shows up. So make sure you save before you get to this page. And this is where you enter the financial details. See, I have to share this because it's a new window. Is that working? Technical difficulties. Can you see it now? Well, I can't really share that part of my screen for some reason, so I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Sorry about that. So here is the first page where you can provide your contact information. I didn't mention this before, but on each page you'll see our help desk email and phone number. So if you run into a technical problem, call us and we'll help you through it. And I just showed you this, so I will not too quickly skip through it. Okay, something I didn't mention on the project overview tab before is that if you have any, if you go over the amount of text that you're able to submit, you'll see something below that's red with a negative number. So that means that you've gone over. So here it says negative 81 characters left. That means I need to get rid of 81 characters before I submit. So just make sure as you're typing or pasting information, if you see that red, you need to make it shorter. Okay, and here's what I just showed you before about making sure the project budget button comes up. And here's the window I was trying to show you. So a pop-up will show up, which has your project budget, and you need to have at least one expense listed, of course, in order to be accepted. So basically, the budget just has to balance. So there are instructions at the top of the page. Some people get a little confused and think this is an error message, but it's actually just the instructions. So it's just telling you how to fill out the form. But again, if you have any questions about that as you're filling it out, or any problems, you can always call the help desk number. So press save when you're done with that, and then it will save your budget and it will show up on the page. And on this page, there's also some narrative questions about the budget. For example, how you'll adjust the project if it's not fully funded. And if you have any questions about what something means, there's a glossary at the bottom of the page. Okay, and then there's the supplemental materials tab, which is next. You can attach up to 3 pages of PDF documents. It's a little bit easier than it was last year because last year you could only attach one document. So this year you can attach several. And again, make sure that you're checking the council priorities. If they have any instructions on any required materials, for example, requiring a resume or a letter from the venue where you're hosting the event, this is where you would upload it. And if they haven't asked for anything, I wouldn't really recommend attaching anything unless they ask for it, because it might not get looked at if it's not asked for. So let me see if I can go back to the application and just show you that. Okay, so I'm on the Supplemental Materials tab, and I'm going to upload a PDF. So yep, it's a little bit slow. I'm just waiting to make sure you can see it. So I can drag and drop files here from my desktop, or I can press the Browse button. So I'm just going to press the Browse button, see what's on our desktop right now. And I'll just, upload a PDF. Okay, so you can see it was successful, and I can see it below here. If I chose the wrong PDF, it's okay. I can still just click on this, and there's a little delete button with a trash can. So I can see it down here once I've added it, and you can do that for multiple files. So if you had 3 of them and you wanted to delete one, same thing, just press delete. And the next, or actually the end of the application is the e-signature, is just verifying that everything in the application is correct and truthful, and you've read the guidelines. So you press this. And this application is not complete, so I'm actually going to show you what happens when you submit an incomplete application or an application with an error. So I'm going to press submit right now, and I'm not sure if you can see the error message that comes up. It says applicant name cannot be empty. So that's the first field that I left blank. So this is why you need the pop-up blocker disabled for this website, because otherwise you'll press that and you'll be like, okay, I'm great, I submitted, everything's good, but that's not the case. So once I press okay, it brings me to that first field that that I did not fill out. So I just filled this out. I think I'm done. Now it's telling me my mailing address can't be empty. So it's just still going to bring me to the next thing that I forgot to fill out, or went over the word limit, or anything like that. So I can show you, I'll go back to that PowerPoint and I'll show you what it looks like when you submit successfully. So this is just going through how to upload something. Oh, something I didn't mention, I'm going a little bit all over the place, sorry about that, is that if your material includes photos or music longer than 3 pages, you can include a link to a website, such as Google Drive or Dropbox. And that can be in your application itself, or through something that you attach. Okay, so I'm ready to submit here, and I press final submission and next. And once I press submit, it needs to say congratulations in blue. If you don't see congratulations, you have not submitted successfully. So make sure that you see that, otherwise you haven't submitted. And you'll see here it says view PDF summary. There's a button, and that will give you basically what the council sees when you submit. So it's just a PDF of your application and any materials you attach. And I would recommend saving that immediately just for your reference. But it should be emailed to you, but in case you lose the email, you know that here's a copy of your application. And as I mentioned before, reminders will be sent automatically 1 and 2 weeks before the deadline if you have not submitted successfully. So definitely start early to make sure we catch you there. And then you'll have submitted successfully. So while I'm at it, there's something that's not on this PowerPoint that I wanted to show you. Go back to that. Okay. So I'm logged in as an applicant on the website. And if you need to find last year's applications or any applications you submitted this year that you're working on, here's where you go there. So let's see, I'll just click home where it says Massachusetts Cultural Council. And this is the page that I first see when I log in. So you can see that what first comes up is an application in progress, which means it hasn't been submitted yet. So that's the application I started while I was on the webinar with you. If I submitted an application, it can show up here. So you can see anything you've submitted this year here as well. And under closed, this is only if you've applied last year. That would be any application that you submitted last year. So you could open it there. And you can open it under submitted as well. So let's see. Sure, I'll just open this test application. And it will open it, basically to what you saw when you were applying. And you can also click View PDF Summary, and then you can get basically a PDF of what the council saw when you submitted. So some resources otherwise. One second, just making sure this is full screen. Okay. So some resources otherwise. There's a sample panel book online, which is still on that website when you first search for the application. And that will just show you what the council sees when you apply. This PowerPoint will be on our website as a PDF, and we'll also be recording this webinar. One second, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, there you go. So sorry about that. So the panel book will be online. This PowerPoint will be available both as a webinar and just as a PDF. And you can always contact our help desk via phone or email, and that number is listed on every page of the application. So thanks a lot for your time. If there are any questions, submit them through the Q&A, and we'll be here for a few more minutes to answer them. But otherwise, here's the contact information for the help desk if you ever have a question as you're submitting your application or filling it out. And good luck with your application. So let's see, any questions? So is there, one question was, is there a maximum of 3 total pages, or can 3 uploads be of multiple pages? So you could have one PDF that's 3 pages, or you could have 2 PDFs that's one's 2 pages, one is 1 page. So the number doesn't really matter as much this year. Let's see, any other questions? Sorry, my coworkers are right here to read them. So what's the official year for the council? For example, if we have a New Year's activity, when would this need to be submitted? So the state guidelines say that there's actually an 18-month window of applying. So if you apply this year, your project has to take place between July 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2018. So it could have already happened. But that said, some councils can restrict that. Some councils want the project to happen only in the future. So they'll say on their council priorities page, only projects that take place in 2018 are eligible, for example. So make sure that you've read the council priorities before you apply, just to make sure your project is eligible. So in short, our guidelines say there's an 18-month window, but councils can make this a smaller window. And yep, there's a question about whether you can apply to more than one council. I did not go over that, but yes, you can apply to as many as you'd like. And you'll just have to fill out the application again. So you just start a new application. So if it's the same project, exact same application to 3 different councils, you can still apply, but you still have to go through the process of filling out the application. But we have no limit on how many you can submit. Okay, so if councils haven't posted their priorities yet, they should be online by September 1st. So if you see nothing on their council priorities, if it just says coming soon or really not much information, then they don't have anything else to add for this year. So just go by our state guidelines and know that whatever else they required had to be posted by the 1st, so you can continue applying without more information. Yep, and the question is, if you request the full amount for the project, can the council still award a lesser amount? Yes, and that happens quite often. So that's why there's a question in the budget narrative about what you'll do if you get less funding than you requested. So make sure that question is well thought out when you answer it. Oh, this is a good question. So someone asked, last year I could see how much different councils were awarded, but I haven't seen this year, and why is that? So last year when you logged into the council profile, you could see how much they were given that year. For example, $10,000. And this year you can't see that yet because we're still actually waiting on our budget. So as you may have heard, this summer Governor Charlie Baker vetoed the Mass Cultural Council budget that was set to be level funded at 14, and he vetoed it at 14 million, and he vetoed it to 12 million. So the state legislature will meet in September to vote on whether to override that veto. So we might go back to 14 instead of 12, but we're not sure. So there's a little bit of information on our website at massculturalcouncil.org if you wanted more information about that, but also to advocate. There's some links to Mass Creative, which is the state arts advocacy organization, and a letter that you can send to your legislators to let them know that you support this program and the arts. So that's coming soon. Unfortunately, we don't have a number yet. We're hoping for good news, but anything you can do to help would be great, because we want more funding for you as well. Okay, so someone asked if you can submit invoices after you receive the grant money. So this is just the application. So once you've submitted the application, you're all set with this program. So if the council asks you for an invoice when you're applying for reimbursement, that just goes separately on paper as it was before. So this program is just you submit your application and then you're done. You're done with that. So someone asked what's the deadline for getting an approved project completed? So when you apply for a project, you have a date proposed. You could change that later on through communication with the council, but it has to be, you have to apply for reimbursement for the project within a year of receiving your acceptance letter. So let's say you received your acceptance letter on December 13th, 2017, then you have until December 13th, 2018 to apply for reimbursement. Someone asked, can you submit a grant application you wrote last year to a different town this year? Yes, you can. There's no restriction there. And someone asked, what about in-kind or other funding? Please discuss how much is needed. So let me just go back to our budget page. There's a question about in-kind funding. So in-kind donations is listed there too. So if you have any in-kind donations, they're not required at all unless the council requires something, but that's definitely something to think about and to list. You might not even know that you have an in-kind donation, but you really do. For example, a venue might have donated space to you, or volunteers donated hours. So if you have something like that, definitely assign a dollar amount to it and how much that's been given to you. So an in-kind donation is something that's been given to you that has a certain value, but you didn't have to directly pay for it. But it's not required on our end. So someone asked if they can change the applicant's name from last year. So all of last year's applications are still in the past, so you can't change that. But if you did want to change the name that you're using to apply, here's my test account. So I just go to that menu at the top right, and I click Personal Profile. So here's my first and last name, and I can change it right there. And if I wanted to change my email address, I could change it there as well, and just press Save. And it's the same thing too. You can change your password. So if you, for some reason, needed to change your password, you could do it there. See, any other questions? Yeah, and we don't want to keep you too long. So if there are any other questions that we'll go through this. If we haven't answered them, we'll get in touch with you. Otherwise, please be in touch through the help desk or your local cultural council, depending on your question. And we're hoping for good news about the budget, and we wish you luck with your application.